Welcome everyone to Coffee and Grace with Amanda. And today we are with our special guest, JJ from Australia. And she's a newer Facebook friend of mine, and I'm so blessed to have gotten to know her. And especially recently, she's been such a blessing. I am learning so much about her. And I wanted to have her come on. She's been through so much. She's actually a coach in Australia, a Christian coach. And so we'll talk about that. So welcome, JJ. I'm so glad you could come on today and talk with me. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to chat with you today, Amanda, and to actually share my story in the hope that it's going to help others.
Yes, I'm so thankful for you coming on today. It is going to be a huge encouragement to many ladies I can think off the top of my head already. So thank you so much for coming. So let's go ahead and get started. So you're a Christian coach, like I mentioned, in Australia. So what made you become a coach originally?
Originally, it's all about helping people. And originally, I wasn't a Christian coach because I wasn't a Christian. So I didn't grow up as a Christian. And my first thought, and it was about 30 years ago, that I wanted to help people in their life. I saw so many people struggling with their mindset and struggling with life, and I really wanted to help them. And so that was my purpose, is to help people in life, and particularly women. And fortunately, I became a Christian about 7.5 years ago. And I realized, and we'll probably get into a little bit more depth about this a bit later, but I realized that some of the stuff that I'd learnt as a coach was wrong.
Mm.
So,
Mhm.
and once I learned that some of it's still good and you can adapt, but some of it isn't right. So once I became a Christian, I was like, wow, I really want to help people. I want people to know what the truth is. I want
Mhm.
people to really understand that, we're living in a temporal world, and how important it is to understand, our eternal world,
Right.
and with that. And so once I became a Christian, it was like, well, I really want to help women. I think the world teaches women to be differently than what God has created us to be. And so I
Right.
really wanted to, for me, it's like I want people to, and people have been struggling with that. They're trying to be
Mhm.
something that they weren't created to be.
Right.
And so I've I've been blessed to be able to help women in regards to that.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. So you are an insatiable learner, and I want to know, what self-development have you done over the years? I know you've done a lot because of the coaching and all of that. So tell us a little bit about that.
You can see all my books here. Now, and please don't judge me from my books, because I think sometimes people look at your books and go, oh, so that's what you believe. I often also read books that I don't believe,
Mhm.
so the opposite of that. So I find it interesting when people look at books and go, oh, she likes this. No. So, because there's a Scientology book I've got up there, believe it or not, and it's very interesting. And believe me, I do not believe in that. But yeah, over the years, I mean, I love to learn. I love to read. I've traveled the world in regards to working with all different people, from Tony Robbins, Lisa Nichols. I've done coaching here in Australia with the Coaching Institute, um, and Dale Beaumont, Benjamin Harvey. I'm just trying to, Dr. DeMartini. Like I've just learned from a lot of different people.
Mhm.
And I suppose in my journey, as I said, from not being a Christian to becoming a Christian, my filter of how I see things is very different now to how it
Right.
was years ago.
Mhm.
And so I've learnt, and I've studied things like NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming,
Mhm.
um, and hypnosis, and all those things that I don't believe in now, but
Mhm.
there's still things that what I see people do. So it's actually helped me open my eyes and have more discernment, based on some of the things that I've learnt in the past that maybe I don't agree with. I
Mhm.
can see that in maybe false teachers, um,
Right. Mhm.
people that wanting to flatter you or take you down a path that isn't the right path to go down. So it's
Right.
definitely helped me with my discernment. Of course, the number one thing is reading your Bible and understanding what God says is the
Right.
truth, and
Mhm.
then understanding, yeah, what isn't the truth. So
Right,
yeah,
exactly. Mhm.
lots of study.
Right. And speaking of the truth, go ahead and tell us about your journey to becoming a Christian because I mean, that's
Yeah.
the ultimate truth is learning that and learning about salvation. So, how did you come about to become a Christian?
Well, I think it's interesting because in Australia, unfortunately, we are quite different from America, and we haven't got um, that same level of, I suppose, how many people go to church and believe in the Bible. And I remember going to a Lisa Nichols event in Florida, and there was like so many people. There's probably 1,000 people there, and I remember uh, seeing this lady from Texas, and I remember she said to me, "So do you believe in God?" And I said, "I don't not believe in God, but and my son was a Christian." I said, "My son's a Christian," and I remember she said to me, "Oh, I thought I liked you,"
Oh,
and it was a little joke. And she's like, "You've got to get right with God." And I'm like, "Okay." Um, and I remember having one of these examples. It was so powerful for me, and it just stays with me. I don't know why, but I was in, I think I was in New York, and I was in I don't know if it's called an Uber over there. So we got Uber over there,
mhm, mhm,
and this beautiful African American lady, and she was so beautiful. And it was her Uber, and I get in her Uber, and we're chatting the whole way about my son and about God. And I was still working it out because for me it was very strange because I'd never grown up as a Christian, and my family weren't a Christian, and this beautiful African American lady, and she was like an angel. She really was, and she was so warm, and and she was just saying things for making me really think. And it's like, she's saying, "I love your son. Your son really, he gets it, and and he's trying to get you saved and have eternal life." And she's just said it in such a beautiful way. And I remember where she dropped me off, and she was like, "Oh, I've got to make sure you're safe. Let me make sure you're safe where you're staying." And then she said, "Can I give you a big hug?" And so she gave me a big hug, and she was just this beautiful, beautiful lady. Um, but my son was 17 when he got saved, and he got saved online by Pastor Anderson.
mhm.
So we're really fortunate that that happened. And then he worked on me for about 2 years.
Well,
About 2 years he worked on me. So you could see how
mhm,
stubborn and prideful I was for that time. And he would literally walk. I'd be walking around the house, and he'd be following me, and he'd be doing it. And I'd be pushing back a lot of the time. I'd be asking questions because a lot of, there were some things that came up that I was such a worldly person. And even though as a coach, I thought I was open, Amanda. Like I thought, I'm open minded. I used to say to my clients, just try something on, try this idea on. And I thought I was open minded, but I wasn't. I wasn't. And so I had these really, these belief systems that I would, was so worldly. But thank God that still and just kept persisting with me until and then it was just, I got it. I got it. I was like, wow, I get it. And I was ready. And, I was doing some sinful stuff at the time. I was drinking alcohol, for instance. And there's been so many blessings along the way because I stopped alcohol. And even in my mind, I thought to myself, this was 7.5 years ago. In my mind, I was still, it was that struggle between, the old man and the new man.
Right.
And and so I didn't even language that I was going to give up alcohol. I was like, I'm giving up for a month. And that's what I said. I was giving up for a month. And I'd never not had like stopped drinking alcohol because it was so part of the culture in Australia, and I'm sure it's similar in America. And so I'm like, I'm going to give up for a month, and then it was like this. It's like just God's like, this is it. You're you're not going to have this. This is, and so that was 7.5 years ago, and yeah, God helped me just say see you later to alcohol. That was gone 7.5 years ago.
That's beautiful. Love that.
And so I started then to change really my identity becoming a Christian woman. And that's still going, I'm still on the search for becoming that virtuous woman. I don't believe that I'll ever meet that criteria of God, because it is a high standard. But it is the goal for me to be that virtuous woman. And so I'm always measuring myself to that standard. And so, yeah, and so once I became a Christian, I had, my husband was the big challenge. He was the big challenge because we worked on him, and we'll talk about him, I'm sure, going forward. We worked on him for, for about 7 years.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, and so I can thank, Pastor Anderson for saving my son, and my son for saving me.
That's beautiful. I love that so much that, our church is reaching people all the way over in Australia. And that's just so beautiful. I love hearing these stories about, how people get saved and then their lives change and they're able to, go in the way of righteousness instead of staying where they are, and they're learning. And so I love hearing your story. And so that's changed a lot. Becoming a Christian has changed a lot in your personal life. So how did this change your business, like as a coach? Because you mentioned that you had learned from all of these, unchristian people teaching, things that are obviously not biblical. And so to change and teach and coach in a way that, the Lord will be happy with, obviously. How has this changed in your coaching business?
Yeah. Well, I've created the Virtuous Woman Circle. So it's all about focusing on women. I love working with women. And it is looking at the world and how the social conditioning, because I've studied social conditioning. I mean, God is amazing. It's like, the path, I see my path and what I've been taught in the last, 7.5 years. It's just like it's come to where I am now. And even with what happened with COVID and all of that, because that affected my business. I did a lot of stuff online, and the challenges with my husband's health, which we'll talk about a bit later. But all of that, that social conditioning, once I was learning about that, I could see how the world changes people's beliefs and everything around the world, from the music that we hear, that we listen to, the TV shows, from movies to we have a television. I can't remember the last time we put it on. But social media, like, you can't get away from it. Yesterday I was in Target, and I was just shopping, and I was listening to the song on Target, and I'm thinking, and still today I'm thinking, I need to tell them about that song. Like, I can't believe that they've got this song playing in this store.
Mm.
And then they talk about, the different identities and all of that on the, I don't know if they do that in America, but they're saying, that we include everybody. And I'm shopping, and I'm thinking, I don't want to hear all of that. We're
Right.
conditioned so much around us, from, and from music, from flashing lights to, we can't get away from it. So it's about us understanding what that looks like, so that the more that we understand how we're conditioned, the more discernment and wisdom that we have. And the Bible is, our number one source of truth. And my son's really taught me that, because often when I first became a Christian, I would have a problem or that I'd want to solve, and I'd be thinking, and I'd go to my son, we're very close, and I'd say to him, what do you think about this? I'm having this. And he'd say, Mum, go to the Bible. And so he'd always refer me to the Bible, refer me to the
Mhm.
Bible. And so, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's right. And so now I'm like, okay, if I have any challenge, I'm always like, I'm going to the Bible. I might do a Google search on, and then I'll go, okay, that verse, and I go into and look at it, or I'll listen to a sermon by
Mhm.
a trusted teacher.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's so that's my journey.
So it's changed quite a bit since you became a Christian. I love that. So you recently lost your husband that you were with for 37 years to prostate cancer. When was he diagnosed?
2 years ago. So
Mm.
2 years ago in June. Yeah. So so that's one of the big challenges that have happened in the last couple of years. It's and again, it's the learnings that we got from that was just incredible, like incredible. I think, I often say to my son, if I wasn't a saved Christian, I don't know how I would have worked through all of that. Like, I just don't know. And I've got a comparison. So I suppose, there was the time, the old man, or I call it the old JJ. Yeah, the old JJ who wasn't a saved Christian, who had in the past gone through grief. So when I was 17, I lost my dad from lung cancer. So I lost dad when I was 17, and then we also lost our first baby. Rocky and I lost our first baby as well. And so I wasn't a saved Christian then. And so I can really see the comparisons of how I dealt with grief then to how I have dealt with grief now. And when someone is ill, you sort of grieve along the way as
Right.
well, because
Right.
you lose little bits of them. And so it was when Rocky got diagnosed, we went into action mode. And very much like yourself, Amanda, we really looked, we did a lot of research. We were very much into natural. We, hit it hard with, things like SDAT, and, he was diagnosed with stage 4, I'll say this at the start, stage 4 cancer
Wow.
originally. So from the start. So in the start, he had stage 4 cancer. It had already spread. And so we did a lot of praying. Our church did a lot of praying. And he was doing well for a long time. He was feeling better than he ever had. He wasn't a saved Christian at that time. My husband, was quite stubborn when it came to, the Bible. He'd grown up as in the Anglican church, and his family were, or still are, they say that they're Anglican, some say that they're Catholic. And so the challenge with Rocky, my husband, was that he wouldn't want to talk about it either. And he wouldn't, so we'd say, we want to talk to you about the Bible, we want to make sure you're saved. And he'd just go, no, no. And he'd just block it off. And so
Oh,
that was really challenging because you couldn't sort of have that conversation to,
right.
so I'm not sure what that was about. And so as Rocky got ill and he went through this, he would still go to bed, he'd say that he'd pray. So that was really interesting. But it wasn't until he was really ill. It wasn't until he was really ill. And one day we were in hospital, and I'm talking, he passed away June, a couple of months ago. So it would have been probably June, might have been May, probably about a month before, something like that. He
Mm-hmm.
was in hospital. Dylan was at home at the time, and he was in hospital. And he just said to me, just out of the blue, he said, "I've got to get right with God." And I'm like, right. And then we were onto it. I got my
Right.
son on the phone. He talked through the Bible. He'd already talked through getting him saved before, but we weren't sure that he was saved. So
Mm-hmm.
he got on the phone straight away. He, got him saved because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm like, I can't
Right.
wait for you to come here. Let's just get you on the phone. And then so he got him saved over the phone. Then I think that same day I went home, got Dylan, came back, and then he made sure that everything was right. And we went through the Bible together, read the Bible together, and we got him saved.
That's
So,
beautiful. I'm so glad he got saved.
yeah, so we were like, yay. So that was such a beautiful, that was our number one focus.
Right.
So, but we had so many miracles along the way. We had so many miracles along the way. And I think for me, because I had God comforting me, guiding me, and we had so many scary moments too. And I know to be fearful, other than being fearful of God, which is what we should be, but being fearful in life is sinful. And so, when there'd be things that would happen that I'd feel this fear at the doctors, I'd just go straight away. I'd think about different verses. I'd pick up my Bible and a couple, I'd always think of, God's thoughts are higher than my thoughts, his ways are higher than my ways. And I'd say that over and over and over in different times. And all things work together for good to them that love God, to them are the called according
Mm-hmm.
to,
Mm-hmm.
so I'd say that. And that was so comforting. It was,
Right.
so I'd feel fear come, and then I just, go into the word, think about the word, uh, and that comfort would just come to me. And so, yeah, so it was, I was so blessed to be a Christian and to
Right.
get Rocky saved. And as I said, there were so many beautiful things that came out of that. So I remember, uh, for instance, when my dad passed away, I was 17, but I remember when he passed away at home. And I remember just when he passed away at home, I remember just taking off down the street, like getting away from it. I couldn't deal with it.
Right.
Um, and when Rocky passed away, we knew it was coming. And I found we were at the hospital, and I was thinking it was just the I suppose the tension of waiting for his last breath was really, really challenging because I hadn't
Right.
experienced that before. And I remember saying, and we'd go every day, we'd read the Bible to him. And he'd want us to read the Bible. You know, everything just changed. It was so beautiful. And so we'd read the Bible. And I remember a male nurse coming in and standing there listening. And so I'll keep going. I'm like, okay, this is beautiful. And we had we had verses from the Bible up in his room, and it was just such a beautiful, experience. And I remember the night before I said to him, look, if you need to go, go. If you need to go, just go. We're fine. We're fine. And, if God calls you back, just go. We're all good. And I said to my son, Dylan, is it okay if we're not, how are you going to feel if Dad goes and we're not here? And he said, I'm going to feel fine. I said, so am I. Whatever God thinks is right for us, he's going to do. And so we went home that night, and then I got a call about 9:45 to say that he passed away. And so Dylan and I then got in the car, went to go and see him. And I was in the car with Dylan. I said, how are you going to feel seeing, Dad? And he's like, well, I haven't seen somebody, that has deceased before. So that will be a bit weird, but I'm okay because we know that that's his vehicle. That's his vessel. It's not him. His soul's already with God. And
Right.
and so we walked in, and when we saw him, I was so different, Amanda. Like, it was like I looked at him and I'm like, this is your vessel. And I'm like, oh, he's with God. And there was this comfort about that. It was like, okay. And we did a prayer when we were there. But Dylan and I it was like, okay, he's gone. He's gone to God. His soul's gone, and this is his vessel here. So it was a really completely different experience from my dad, because my dad, it was like I was looking at my dad and going, I want him to stay here, looking at his body and thinking this is him.
Mm-hmm.
Where with Rocky it was different. It was like he's with God now. He's out of pain.
Right.
He's there. He's celebrating. We're so thankful that we know where he's gone.
Yes.
And yeah, so it was just a whole different experience. And then we saw so many blessings. Our focus was with his funeral that we were going to celebrate Rocky's life and get as many people saved in the meantime. So
Yes.
we spoke to our pastor, and his funeral was, we had beautiful hymns. We had my beautiful niece singing. We had everyone singing hymns, and we had our pastor who spoke the gospel, and Dylan did a beautiful speech about getting people saved. And we had at the back of the memorial, it had the Bible Way to Heaven, had a QR code, and so we did everything in our means to plant seeds and to get people
Right.
saved. And that created so much interest. And I got my best friend, or my son got my best friend saved at the hospital.
That's
And then
beautiful.
after last week, I think it was, we got his son saved. And so there's so many beautiful things that came out of that. And it also helped me, this whole process too, because my family who are not Christian, it helped sort of open that up, and for
Right.
them to suddenly, and I think with death, people start to think about their own mortality
Right. Right.
and the mortality of other people that they love, and it's
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. So yeah, it's and I'm looking forward to getting as many people in our family and our friends, and as many people that we can get saved through Rocky's death. And I can
Right.
see I can see that that's happening. And I really do believe, we are blessed by God, because, if Rocky had gone suddenly and wasn't saved, we would rather him, die at 61 and know that he's got eternal life with God than live to 120 and not be saved.
Right.
So,
That would be heartbreaking. That's hard to live with when we
yeah,
lose people that we love that are not saved. That is really, really heartbreaking. And so it, you went through a lot being his caretaker for as long as you were. I mean, that was heartbreaking. And like you said, you grieve along the way,
yeah,
but you do have that comfort knowing where he is, that, there's no more pain, there's no more sorrow for him right now. He's, you know,
yeah,
with the Lord right now. And he's looking down and he's so proud of you and Dylan right now. He's so proud of you and your son. And
yeah.
I'm sure he's so
We
thankful
joke,
too, we know.
we joke there. We joke sometimes, and we say, "I wonder if he's got a little television or something," and he's looking down and seeing, what we're doing, and yeah, I know that he'd be very proud of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your journey with him when you were caring for him. How was that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was a challenge, because I'd often I would often say prior to that I wouldn't be a very good carer because I'm not very patient, man. Um, and uh, and when I say that, I'm not patient. I haven't been patient in regards to, like, I'm not patient with myself when I'm ill. I don't like, no one likes being ill, but I'm the type of person, I just get on with things. And if I'm really sick, if I've, and I'm not sick very often, but if I have been, I just want people to leave me alone. And if I can't get on with things, I'll just have a sleep, and then once it's done, I get up, and then I just, I don't need to be sort of, you know, um, I don't need people to do stuff for me. I like just to
Right.
rest and get things done. And so
Hmm.
um, Rocky needed a lot of caring at the end,
Right. Right.
and so it was challenging. So it was like, and I suppose in some stages it seemed like it happened gradually, um, but and then other times it seems like it happened fast. But
Hmm.
but the little things you sort of lose. So
Yeah.
we would hug each other every day. There was one, that was just our thing. But then, for 37 years, and he would make me a coffee every morning. So that was
Oh.
that was our thing for 37 years. And then it came to a time where he couldn't make the coffee. And then it
Hmm.
came to the time where he couldn't have a hug because he had cancer in his spine. So that was
Oh.
him. So it was, it taught me a lot. It taught me patience. It taught me, um, I felt honored to look after him. Um, yeah, but it's very challenging. You don't. There's times you don't get any sleep. There were times that we'd go to the hospital, and because and we've got little puppies. We got well, she's not little now, but we've got Bella, our little cavoodle. She's 2.5, no, 3, nearly 3, and we've got little Lucy, who is 7 months, and she's a cavoodle as well. But so we had puppies at one stage. Bella had puppies, and so I remember being up all night. Dylan and I had, my son and I had to have shifts in staying up for the puppies to make sure that they were okay.
Right.
And so one night I had a shift and I hadn't slept all night. And then when I went to go to bed at 10:30, Rocky was ill and we had to go to hospital. So
Oh.
I hadn't slept all day, all the night before, and so I had all of this time. And then at 10:30, I had to take Rocky to the hospital. So once I went to the hospital, we were in emergency for another 24 hours. So there was
Oh,
like
wow.
40 something hours I hadn't had any sleep.
Wow.
Um, and so that was, yeah, really, really, really challenging. But there was this, again, there were so many blessings in regards to that. I mean, when I remember a couple of things. Once when right near the end, uh, we found, I mean, everyone, the community was just amazing. Like, we had so many people helping us. But I remember this time where I hadn't had sleep for 40 something hours. And I get home and I said to my son, like, we have to go back to the hospital because it was so close to the end. And I said, but I need to have, and he said, but mum, you've got to have sleep. Like, you have to have sleep. And I think it was like, I think I'd only had an hour in the middle. And I said, but I've only got an hour and we have to get back to the hospital. So I said, I haven't got time. I don't think I'd fall asleep anyway. And how am I going to get up in an hour? And he said, Mum, just try and have an hour's sleep. And so this is this one of these miracles. And so I laid in bed and I just said to God, please, God, can you just give me 1 hour sleep, good sleep, and that I can get up and in an hour and feel refreshed. And it might sound like a small thing, but when and all this stress and all of this happening, and I'd said to Dylan, can you wake me up in an hour? And so I said my prayer. I went to sleep just like I was out like a light. In an hour, I woke up like boing, and I walked out of the bedroom. Dylan hadn't woken me up. I
Wow.
walked out of the bedroom with a smile on my face, Dylan said. I didn't know. And I'm like, and he's like, Mum, he goes, I thought you wanted me to wake up. And I'm like, oh. And he said, it's exactly an hour. So in an hour, I had 1 hour sleep. I woke up in an hour without an alarm, without my son waking me up. Walked out with a smile on my face, like a big smile.
That's
And
amazing.
I seriously felt like I'd had 8 hours sleep.
Wow.
And that's what I prayed for. And so I was rejuvenated. I was ready to go again. And then we went to the hospital. And so, yeah, but yeah, the other miracle was just people just, I mean, we had people from church cooking stuff for us, dropping meals off, when Rocky, before and after. I mean, when Rocky was right near the end, I remember going outside and our neighbours next door, we had the wife had driven home from work and she'd stopped at the front and she's like, you're not driving, I'm taking you to, and so she was there coming to pick me up to take
Wow.
us to the hospital. We get to the hospital and all our friends had just left work, from all the other side of town, people that were 2 hours away,
Wow.
just stopped everything. They brought, my best friend, she'd made schnitzels and she came with a it was just unbelievable how everyone just wanted to help. And it really taught me how important your loved ones are, how important community is, how important how you deal with people with grief.
Mhm.
That's so important because it's a hard journey. Um, and so I get the emotions coming up. I wanted to trigger their face. It teaches you so much. And beforehand, with grief, like I remember reaching out to people and saying, if you need anything, I'm here. But I realized that's not enough. It's not enough because, again, thinking about how I think the world teaches us to be quite masculine, you know.
Right.
And so sometimes when people say, you know, do you need any help? Do you need anything? Often, and I can only speak about myself, I've gone, oh no, I'm fine, I'm all good. But sometimes you're not. And
Right.
so it's the people that actually said, I've got a casserole that I'm making. Can I drop it off tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like you're not in that level of being able to go, you know, oh no, don't worry about it, or no, I don't need any help. It's like, oh, okay, if that. So people were just saying, so they weren't pushy, but at the same time they weren't, you know, it was that medium sort of, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
want to help, I've done something for you. I can even put it at the front. I don't need to come in, you know, I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
at your front door, but I've
Right.
made this, or I've got this, I've got a fruit basket, I've got something. Um, that was so helpful. And I thought, I want to be more like that for
Yeah.
other people. And I realized how I wasn't that. I was, even though I wanted to help people, it was more so I was, yeah, saying, you know, do you need anything? Or I'm here for you. And it really was a big learning for me to go, that's not enough. It's not enough to, you know, well, it wasn't enough for me. It was
Yeah.
that those people that said, here, I've done this, I'm giving you this, you know, and people I couldn't believe also financially, some people, you know, people were praying, you know, all these great things people were doing, praying, people saying, I'm praying for you. I mean, what that was just beautiful. We had people all over the world praying for us, including you, Amanda. We had people praying. We had people. You know, one beautiful lady. She said, you know, she sent me money. I don't even know how she did. She got my email address, and somehow you can send money through. And I'm like, what? So we had money. We had food. We had people saying, you know, do you want to go for a walk to the beach? You know, so there's all these different ways that we can help people. You know, not everyone has the money to give people. Not everyone has, you know, a great cook. You know,
Right.
so there's always something you can do to help people, and particularly, I think, you know, widows, or I think people that lose your husband, but also I think you know, mothers and fathers that lose their children.
Right.
You know, there's a really deep grief there. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when the Bible says that we are one flesh, you know, as husband and wife, um, you know, I remember thinking about that, and loving that verse actually, but not really understanding the depth of that until you lose your husband, and then it
Mm.
actually feels like, you know, limbs being taken off,
Right.
because you were one flesh,
Right.
uh, and your identity changes. And I hate saying that word because it's like they've taken this word, and, you know, the world has taken this word and corrupted it, just like the beautiful
Right.
rainbow you have. But it's like who you think you are has changed now, because for
Right.
37 years you're a married woman,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you're not.
Right.
And so it's adjusting to that. So with, you know, there's been so many learnings, and you know, and as the Bible says, you, as a saved Christian, you don't grieve the same.
Right.
It doesn't mean you don't grieve. You grieve, as you just saw. Just
Right.
you grieve, and that's a beautiful thing, because that's love, right?
Right.
It's a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that can come up, but you don't grieve the same. You don't, because you know, well, you usually, well, hopefully you do know where, you know, your loved one has gone, and we're so blessed to know that Rocky's with God. And and so you don't, and you've got the comfort of God, and it's weird because there's times where, um, I've felt, and I don't want to sound like a Pentecostal here, but I've really felt comforted in some way,
Right. Right.
and sometimes I've gone to bed and things that happen because when you lose your husband as a woman, I mean, we've got our house for sale, for instance, like lots of things, it impacts everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of on my mind, and I'll just pray to God before I go to sleep and just say, please, I can't do this on my own. I just can't. I
Right.
just can't do this.
Right.
I need, um, I need you to take this for me,
Mm-hmm.
and work this out. And so it it's tested my faith. It's grown my faith, and that's continuing. We're selling our home at the moment, and the first two opens, we had nobody come, and
Mm-hmm.
I can feel that fear happening, and then again, my son's like, God's got this, He's got
Mm-hmm.
it. Whatever's going to happen, He's got it. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, it's growing that faith and just saying, which is the opposite of what the world teaches us.
Right.
It teaches us, it's if it's the saying, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. It's all about me. And so still to this day, Amanda, I've got to that, and that's the old JJ, and the new
Mm-hmm.
JJ is more like, okay, yes, I can still do my part, but ultimately it's up to God.
Right.
And I remember Pastor Anderson actually saying something. I wrote it down, and um, it was he said, work like it depends on you. And this isn't about salvation, by the way. I'll just clarify that. Work like it's up to you, but pray because it's God's the one that's going
Right.
to it's up to Him. But we can
Mhm.
work like it does depend on Him, but ultimately it's up to God.
It's
And
up to.
that, yeah. And so I wrote that down and had that in my diary for a long, long time, because I kept reminding myself, yes, I'll pray and I'll do my part, but ultimately it's up to God what happens here. And I find that's been really useful for me, with every
Right.
aspect of my life. Yeah, so
That's
that's a
beautiful.
long answer to your question with emotion added to it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing this with me and with our audience. I think it's going to be, we both have lost, had friends who have lost their loved ones, and very recent in the last several months. And I just believe this is going to be so helpful and such a blessing to them,
Yeah,
because you're in the same, you're going through the same things, even though our friends were younger, you know, um, they didn't have that much time with their spouse, but they are still grieving, just as you are. The grief is a little bit different, because
yeah,
they have young children and things like that, but it will still be a blessing to them to know that they're not alone in this grief.
yeah,
And it's a good reminder to them that you don't grieve as those that have no hope, that you
yeah,
have that hope. It'll be a really nice blessing for them to be reminded of that. So I really appreciate you coming on and being vulnerable and being a blessing to others, in this life. And that's part of, obviously being a coach too,
yeah,
helping women, basically along these lines. And so, um, as a coach, you help people with grief as well. So, what lessons would you give someone that is currently experiencing grief, and for those that have others going through grief as well?
yeah. Going through, and I think everyone grieves differently. So I
Hmm.
want to, say that first. And you go through different stages and different, moments. Someone asked me the other day, do you have bad days and good days? And I say I have different moments, because things can change. So for instance, I could have maybe yesterday or tomorrow had the podcast and maybe not got emotional. And I just allow that when that comes, the emotion comes, I just allow that to happen, because
Right.
that's a natural process, and it can, and sometimes you don't know what that's going to be,
Right.
so there can be just this, you might hear a hymn that you think, oh, and it reminds you of the funeral, or you might see something in your house that brings that up. So one of the things that I would say firstly is that everyone grieves differently, and everyone's journey is different. Like your beautiful friend, she's younger. It was quite sudden,
Mm-hmm.
the death of her husband. So, and so that's a different, and we're different people, and so we grieve differently in different ways. And mine was more of a longer process, dealing with illness and caring and all of that sort of thing. And but grief is challenging for anybody. And I think one of the things I would say is just be mindful of judging people in grief, because someone can, I saw someone saying about Charlie Kirk's wife, for instance, Erica Kirk, and I've seen things on social media about her, and some people were saying, oh, she's not crying enough, or she's, I don't see that she's sad, or she's, or she's fake crying, or all of this sort of thing. And I just think that it's a really good, it's highlighting how people judge people within grief. And
Mm-hmm.
and look, as I said, people grieve differently.
Mm-hmm.
And as a wife, I know with Rocky's funeral, I kept saying to myself, I kept praying to God and saying to myself, because I knew I wanted to be really present and enjoy the celebration of his life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kept praying to God and saying, please, God, please, can you allow me to be present and enjoy the celebration and really comfort anyone else? And that's what I prayed for.
Wow.
And I didn't know if I could do that. I could only do that with God's help.
Right.
And that's what I prayed for. And on the day, that's what happened. The day was beautiful. It was a beautiful funeral. We had beautiful hymns. We had beautiful speeches. Our pastor was amazing. My son's speech was amazing. We had some beautiful speeches from people that, loved my husband, his brother, and his best friends. And it was a beautiful day. And I think I shed one tear. And so some people could have looked, and people could have looked at me and judged me for that. Someone could have said, gee, she's been married for 37 years. I can't see her crying. And so that's so important that, they don't see the whole picture. They don't see you
Right.
crying in the they don't see you crying,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying, I just think people grieve differently. And
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's number one. We've got to be mindful of that.
Right.
I think how I've coped is by just by reading my Bible, reading the Bible, watching sermons, even through Rocky's sickness, we would, sometimes I'd say, okay, I feel like I need to, it's all about faith. I've got to grow my faith. And so I'd get on and I'd look at sermons, from Pastor Anderson or Pastor Jimenez or Pastor Mahia. I know there's challenges with Pastor Jimenez at the moment. But yeah, going into and say, okay, I want to look at something in space And so something would come up with faith, and I go, yeah. And I'd watch that. Dylan and I would watch it. Sometimes we'd be up till midnight.
Mhm.
So good watching sermons, and then I'd feel full, and I'd feel, I just feel full, and I'd feel so much better. So sermons, watching sermons, reading my Bible, prayer, fellowship, all of those beautiful things. Journaling, writing things down if I'm challenged about something, and then looking at the Bible, and just filling myself up with God's word.
Right.
That's what comes through. And yeah, so for someone that's grieving, that's what I would say. And just to be patient with yourself, but be vulnerable. It's okay. I'm a coach. I deal with people with grief, and it's completely normal to cry. And I think that sometimes people, even parents might say, don't, or we might say to other people, oh, it's okay, because we feel uncomfortable with someone else crying. Just allow them to cry.
Mhm.
Sometimes people say something, and an emotion will come up, and I'll start to cry, and I'll hear them say, oh, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. It's okay. That's what it was meant to come up right now. It's a beautiful thing. It's
Mhm.
love. The love for that person that you're missing has come up.
Right.
Speak their name. A lot of the time, particularly with children, that people have lost children, people don't speak their name or talk about them, or avoid even people with, through grief, we've had people avoid us as well. And I know that they're dealing with that, but, so just be there for that person, check in on them, um, and see, give them things without even them asking sometimes. Bake them at something and stick it at their door if you need to.
Right.
Yeah, that would be my advice.
Well, that is so helpful. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing what it was like and how you have been able to deal with this grief. And I see your beautiful posts. You're an amazing writer, I have to tell you. I love seeing your posts. They're so encouraging and inspiring and beautiful. I mean, you're just being, yourself and sharing your expressive love for your husband and how that journey was. And, I tear up a lot of times when I read your posts and I just find them so beautiful. And I'm glad that you do that because it's part of the healing process that you need to go through. I mean, even as coaches, like we have our own things that we struggle with and have to go through as well. So I
Yeah,
love that you're sharing your journey with that and encouraging others. And thank you for sharing, not only your journey, but how others can help with widows and people who are grieving, because a lot of times
yeah,
we don't know what to do. We want to
yeah,
help so badly, but we also
yeah,
don't want to do anything to upset the other person. And we're so afraid of that. And so
yeah,
when, my friend lost her husband recently, I was afraid to like be there for her. I didn't want to say the wrong thing, but it's like, I've got to do something. And so I just said, hey, do you want me to come to the hospital? I would just ask her, do you want this? Do you want that? Like, is this okay? Is this something,
yeah,
because I have heard people in the past say you have to be like really specific with your
yeah,
offer. Like, don't just
yeah.
say, if you need anything, call me, because when a person is grieving, they have no idea what they need.
Yes, yeah,
A lot of times they don't realize it until you say, would you like me to
yeah,
bring you dinner? And then you're like, oh, yeah, actually, dinner would be great because I have been in my own thoughts all day, or I've been dealing with, arrangements for the services or whatever. So just being very specific in your offer. So thank you for sharing how others can help their friends that are grieving as well, their loved ones that are grieving. So that's very super, very helpful. Thank you for
yeah.
that.
And I think the one extra thing that I would say for someone that is grieving is to learn to allow people to help you,
Mhm.
because I was not, and I'm still not really good at it, but uh, I've learnt through this process to say yes. Yes, I do need help. Yes, it would be great. and we, as I said, we've been surrounded with beautiful people. I mean, we have our neighbours that have mowed our lawns. We'd come home and our lawn was mowed.
Oh, that's so
We'd have
nice.
beautiful, some people, beautiful people have given us like 3-course meals. We'd have soup and bread rolls, and we'd have our,
Wow.
have our dinner, and then we'd have apple crumble for dessert. And it's like,
Wow,
you
that's
know,
amazing.
and it was just beautiful. And sometimes people would say, and if you don't know what to say, it's okay to say, I don't know what to say. I just, I don't know what to say. Or do you want a hug? You
Hmm.
know?
Right,
um, and sometimes we don't know what to say, and that's okay too. So I suppose it's both parties being okay with vulnerability,
right,
because I know that, even with Rocky being so ill, it was challenging for people to come to the hospital and see that.
right,
And um, and so, anyone that came to the hospital, I'm like, oh, it's hard for you guys too,
right,
because you see someone looking fit and well, and then suddenly it looks like they've aged 40 years in a
right,
very short amount of time. It's very, very challenging to see. So
right,
it takes a lot of strength, courage, and vulnerability for us, uh, not only the people that are going through, the widow or the parent or whoever it is, the loved ones, but outside of that, it takes a lot of courage for those people too, to say,
right,
how can I help you, and to show up for them. So we all need that, and we get that through God.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that and for being here and be being willing to help others through this grief because not everyone has a strong network like we do. You know, all
Yeah.
of you ladies that are my friends that have lost a loved one recently, all three of you ladies have a very strong network. And I'm so thankful for that, that there has been loved ones coming out of the woodwork
Yeah.
for all of you. And I'm so thankful, especially you, you're so far away. And my other friend, she's so far away. Thankfully, one of them is here. I can get to her, and help her and be there for her. But, it's amazing and such a blessing that you can be on and be that help for someone who doesn't have the network and loved ones that you have, and you can share this with them. And so thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how is this being a Christian, how has this changed you?
So much. So much. It's changed me. Uh, it's really strengthened me. It's given me clarity. It's given me clarity of what's true, what the truth is. Um, and also it it's also, and there's a verse, I can't remember the verse, but about it gives, is that it's actually sorrow that comes with that truth,
Mhm.
because you realize how, you know people are walking around, and they're thinking about a temporal life. They're thinking about day to day, about getting a job. They're focused on, getting, a nice car, a nice house. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but their focus is on all these temporal things, when we have our eternal life that is serving God, and focusing on our eternal is so important. And so
Right,
it's shifted my focus. It's shifted my focus in regards to me as a woman, what I who I want to be, understanding that, I've got the opportunity to be a role model for women. And it's not just young women, it's older women too. I mean, when I first went to the church, we found that unfortunately in Australia, we haven't got as many great churches as you have in America. And we live in a place called Geelong, which is near the beach. It's in Victoria in Australia. And we were looking for a biblical church, a traditional church, King James version only, and we found that challenging. Like just finding that was challenging. I remember I had my son looking and I was looking, and we were in different rooms, and there was one that I could find in our area.
Wow.
That was, I'd look and I'd see a woman past. I'd be like, oh, that's a no. It was all these, and then there's big, drums and I don't know, lights and looking like a disco, and I'm like, that's no. And it's funny. So I remember going to my son and saying, I found one. He said, I found one too. It was a match.
Oh.
And I remember going to church and remembering, because I wasn't a Christian before, the only time I'd ever go to church was for weddings or funerals. And so I was nervous. And one of the things, I've always loved to learn. And I was nervous because I thought, I don't know enough. And I thought, I'm going to look silly. They're going to ask me things and I'm not going to know them. And that I thought, oh well, it's about it, you learn, so that's
Right.
how I'm going to learn. So we went to a church, and some of the people had been there for all their life, and they're older, the 60, 70 years they've been at this church. And I was shocked that I knew so much compared to them in my short amount of time. I'm like, wow. And a lot of them hadn't read the Bible at all. They read snippets of it. They've heard it in sermons, but
Right.
they hadn't read the Bible.
Right.
And I was saying to them, I've only, I'm on my third time reading the Bible. I have, and I'm thinking, oh, that's not good. And they hadn't read it at all. And so I'm like, wow, I know quite a bit. And it's because I'm insatiable learner, and because I've been fortunate to have some really great pastors from America that know the doctrine, and I could learn, and are great teachers, great teaching that very clear, that I've learned. And I've still got so much to learn, but and I know I'll be learning until the day I die.
Right.
But I was so fortunate to have all of that. So so I learned a lot. But yeah, so that was challenging. But it was about, okay, well, I need to make sure that, so I found this church, and so now, and that there was a church split, and that was another great thing for us to go through, to really see the wolves in sheep's clothing, and then I understand more about what's happened in the other churches that I've been following, and some of the challenges that Faithful Word have gone through. I actually then understood more because I saw it.
Right.
And I saw the wolves in sheep's clothing, the flattery, I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. That I learnt that. So yeah. So I think I answered the question.
Yes, good. So you have an event coming up for women. Share about that with us.
Yeah, so it's the Virtuous Women's Circle. So what we're doing is every week we get together for 2 hours every Monday. Well, it's Monday in Australia, so I think it's so it's Monday the 6th of October in Australia. So I think it's the
Sunday night for us in the States. Yeah.
In the States. So what we're doing is, it's all about becoming, or our goal is to be the virtuous woman. And of course, as what I believe is that the standard will never ever be reached, because it's God's standard. We'll never reach that. But that's where we want to be. And there's so much to the virtuous woman. So Proverbs 31, which we'll be diving deep into for the first session, which is this Monday, which is the 6th of October. We're diving deep into the virtuous woman. We're looking at Proverbs 31 and really diving deep into what that is, but also having a look at what the world tells us as well, and why that, because I'm sure there's people that, not even if you've been a Christian all your life, you're still going to have the world. We're not of the world, but we live in the world. There's a difference. Again, it's looking at that and how that can affect us, and just knowing what that virtuous woman looks like and the challenges around that.
Right.
And so a lot of that is everything we're going to be talking about is God's word, is the truth. It is the truth. And so we'll be delving into that, and then there will be the application, and it will be looking at, okay, well, so where do we need to maybe improve? What areas do we need to improve in that? For me, like I can just say right now, you're a health coach, Amanda, and you're a great health coach. That's an area that I'm not great on. And to be a virtuous woman, and if you think about what the Bible says about looking after yourself, like God gave us this vessel, we should be looking after it. So that is something I'm not doing. So if I had to rate myself out of 10, it would be very low. And even moving your body, so exercise, that's not looking after your vessel if you're not doing that, if you're not doing some movement. So it's looking at all those areas of how we can improve so that we can be a role model for other women, whatever age they are. And it doesn't matter what age you are, you can always improve. And I think particularly those people that have got platforms, that everything we do and say, it matters, because I remember, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I remember years ago, before I was a Christian, I would say things like on a Friday, I'd say, oh, it's wine o'clock. Now, I think that was funny. I think it was fun. I think that's not funny. It's not fun. It's teaching women to drink alcohol, saying that that's okay. It's actually not just teaching people, it's actually leading them into that direction. And so as somebody that has a small platform, but I have a platform, everything I say and do matters. And so, I can lead someone into a direction. And so I've got to really think, what does that virtuous woman look like? What is it that we need to teach people? And what standards should we have for ourselves? And we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to analyze ourselves all of the time. And it's okay. We're not perfect, because we're not God. We're not perfect, and we're sinful. And so, we've got the flesh and the spirit. And so there's always that battle. But we've got to be honest with ourselves and honest with others. So as a coach, I'm still someone that, has the old JJ and the new JJ. But I've got to be honest and say, okay, when I'm not getting up to standard, I've got to do something about it. So what's my aim? Where do I want to go? And be clear about that. So, so the first session is the virtuous woman. The whole theme is about the virtuous woman, but we delve into different sections. So on the 13th of October, I talk about the wheel of life. So it's looking at all aspects of your life and assessing how happy you are with them. And so if you assess them out of 10, so it might be finances. So it's important as a woman to make sure that our finances, we're not going out and, buying 6 pairs of shoes and getting the credit card up for your husband and things like that. So it's important for us to make sure that, finances, we're good at finances, we're good at, with our looking after our body, what's our relationship like with our husband, what's our relationship like with our children. And so measuring that, and then say, okay, well, if it's, what needs improving, how can we improve it? and looking at that from a biblical, perspective all the time, going back to the Bible. And then on the 20th, the following week, we've got feminism versus femininity. I find it really fascinating that it's called feminism. It's got like as if it's feminine,
Right.
but there's nothing feminine about feminism. So it's about us seeing that difference, seeing that pull that, that because, anything out in the world can actually affect our thinking. So we've got to be so diligent in seeing that and have that discernment and making sure it doesn't rub off on us, making sure it doesn't rub off on our children,
Right.
because, it's children are a real threat out there. All this stuff going to our children's minds, and I go to the supermarket and I see, boys wearing dresses and all that sort of stuff. And the other month I saw someone with a tail as if they were a cat. They were just
Oh.
horrendous things.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this. So understanding what femininity is. So again, we delve deep into it. We look at scripture, and then we do an action plan. How can we get even better at being that virtuous woman? And the last one is one of my favorites, is the power of prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not just praying. It's like, how do we pray better? And what's important about prayer. So we dive deep into that, and we have discussions about it. We come up with the action plans, and just really making sure that we are, diving into God's word every day and how it can help us, how it can help others, how important it is to pray for others.
Right.
That's so important. So often we're thinking about ourselves. We've got to be thinking about others, how we can serve them, how we can serve God. Praying, there's so many aspects to prayer. One of the things I noticed that I wasn't doing was asking, God, what is it that you need from me? Every day now when I pray, I ask for wisdom. Every day it's like, God, please give me wisdom. Please give me discernment. Please
Right.
help me be a role model for women. Please help me be the best. If I'm not, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So so the aspects of prayer, which I'm really excited about, because I think it's going to really help people. Well, I know it will help people. And we have
Yeah.
discussions. So we have, women being able to say, well, this is what I do, and having different ideas as well, because when women come together, it's so important to have that fellowship and to be able to help each other grow.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and the thing is, it is for Christian women. People that are not a Christian will not understand the Bible, and the Bible says that you have to be a saved Christian to understand the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm welcoming everybody to come in, and I'll be, able to get them saved so that they can then understand the Bible and then get on that journey to becoming that virtuous woman that we, all of us women want to be.
Right. I love that so much. And I'm so, so excited to join your program and learn about this. And I love that you are accepting, other women into the fold that are
Yeah,
interested in becoming a Christian, because with all of the current events that are happening in the world, there's a lot of
yeah,
women out there that are, looking, for Christ. They're asking questions. They're getting, curious about, Christianity and what they should be doing and what their purpose is. And so I'm so excited that you're welcoming those who are interested, that are not yet Christian women, but also, basically helping to build up the women that are already Christian, helping us to
yeah,
become better women, better wives, better mothers, better, you know, um, servants of Christ. And so I'm very excited about this. And I'm most excited about it because, you actually use the King James Bible. There are so many women, unfortunately, online teaching things that they ought not, because they're not even using the word of God. They're not saved. They're not, like, they don't know what they're talking about, and it's so sad. And so I love that, you have chosen to be, change your coaching business to be more Christian based, and that you love using the King James Bible. That's the only one you use. And
Yeah.
I love that you are going to be, sharing with women how to become a virtuous woman. And so I'm excited to be part of this program and learn too, right alongside everyone else. And so this is very super exciting. So thank you for putting that program together. And I'll definitely be sharing those details, ladies, for you that you can join in the description of the video. I'll have all of the information for Janelle's program if you are interested in joining that. So how can people book a ticket to this event? Like I said, we'll leave the description, information in the description, but how can they get a ticket to this?
Yeah, so I'll give you the link and they can just click on the link to the Virtuous Woman. You'll have that link for that. You can follow me on Facebook, Janelle Johnston, Janelle. We've got the name Johnston, Johnston. So you can follow
Beautiful.
me or on Insta, on Facebook. We'll have the link to the actual event. It's got an
Perfect.
October date, so you can either book for the 4, or you can book, so you can have a group, so you can do the whole of October. So it's 2 hours from 10, well, it's 10 to 12 in Australia, so you have to look at the difference. And so it's 2 hours once a week. And so you can have the 4 sessions, or you can just pick which one you want and just have 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, whatever you want. And
I
then
love that
every
so
month
much.
will be different topics.
I love that you're going to be doing these monthly as well. That's really, really
Yeah.
exciting. So it's like an ongoing thing that we can get together with other like-minded Christian ladies and learn this teaching. And then you have that community to help you grow with other women as well. I love the community aspect. I do the group coaching too, and I just find it so invigorating to be there with those ladies and help them through their health experience, and they're growing and they're learning so much and they're encouraging one another. And that is so helpful, not only to have a coach on your side, but also to have other ladies that you become friends with in that journey, and they're going through it just like you are. So I love that we are going to be able to grow together in this new community that you're building. So thank you so much for that, JJ. And thank you for coming on today and sharing your journey and your story. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your husband, but I'm so thankful that he got saved. And you and your son worked so hard on him for a long time, and that prayer was finally answered before he passed and went on to be with the Lord. And so I'm so thankful that he finally got saved, and you have that comfort. So you don't grieve with those that have, no hope. So you have that hope. You have that blessed assurance that you'll see him again someday. And so I love that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being here, JJ, and we'll see you on the next training, and we'll see you around the podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.